Now see the welcome Sweeney Todd gives to gentlemen who return from foreign parts.
Hey gang, Uncle Todd and Sonny here, and today we're looking at Sweeney Todd. No. This is not the Johnny Depp movie. It's the original classic from 1936 starring Tod Slaughter. What? Look, Look, Stephen Sondheim, you can't just show that and get around the copyright. Well, where are you going? Oh, if it's not Johnny Depp, then it's not worth it? You don't see me acting like that just because it's not Helena Bonham Carter, do you? Anyway, as I said, this is the 1936 version starring Tod Slaughter. England's answer to Boris Karloff, basically. And this is for his fans one of their favorites because it gave him this classic catchphrase.
I polished them all up.
Yeah, that's a phrase he will use throughout the film. It's very, very funny. Constantly talking about polishing people off, and they think he means, shaving and giving haircuts and stuff, but that's not quite what he means. Anyways, Sweeney Todd, before it became a big Stephen Sondheim musical and Tim Burton film, was what was euphemistically called a penny dreadful back in the 1800s in England, sort of the precursor to our Depression era pulp magazines. Penny dreadfuls always dealt with gruesome themes. Probably the most famous is Varney the Vampire, aka The Feast of Blood. And Stoker's Dracula was originally considered to be a penny dreadful when it first came out, but it's now considered a classic, unlike Varney. Anyways, it then of course went on to become a play. Several films were based around the character, and then of course the big Broadway musical. And it is probably the progenitor of such films as Blood Feast, which we covered a couple weeks ago, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Blood Diner, all those kind of films. Bugging me there. Now, Tod Slaughter, he was an actor who spent most of his time playing in what was euphemistically called melodramas back then. They were all from the 1800s, but he was doing them in like the 1920s, 1930s. He was touring the Providences with them. And how they came to start making films with him is due to a law that came out in the mid-30s. England did not have a very robust film business then, and a lot of their theaters played American films, and even Karloff, Lugosi, all those horror films they played over in England. And So the powers that be came up with a law where so many films in theaters had to be British made productions. They didn't have to be big budgets, but they had to be made in England. Now, both Lugosi and Karloff had traveled over to England and appeared in some of these films, like The Man Who Changed His Mind, Juggernaut, and those were Karloff films, as well as the Ghoul. And Lugosi made Phantom Ship, which was based around the mystery of the Mary Roget, the famous nautical mystery in which a ship entire crew disappeared. Nobody knew what happened. Nobody knew where they went. It's a very, very famous film or story. Anyways, enter George King, who had been working in some of the film industry, and he realized he could capitalize on this because they were given funding from the government. And so they began making low-budget thrillers. And Tod Slaughter was well known among stage communities for his touring repertoire dealing with these old melodramas, and they were just perfect to be made over into films because no real copyright issues. And the censors in England were a little bit harsher than they were in America, so these were pretty bloodless, in a manner of speaking. And so Slaughter teamed up with King, and they made Murder in the Red Barn, Sweeney Todd, Ticket of Leave Man, The Face in the Window, The Crimes of Stephen Hawke, and their final one was Crimes in the Dark House, which was based on Wilkie Collins's Wilkie Collins' The Woman in White. After that, King decided to move on to bigger production, more critically acclaimed films than the Penny Dreadful style melodramas he'd been making with Slaughter. Slaughter, of course, would continue in this vein. He would make a couple of films in the Inspector Grayson series, in which he was a master criminal that Grayson was always after. He also did a Sexton Blake film in the same capacity. And finished the 40s in a loose adaptation of the story of Burke and Hare called The Horror Maniacs. Oh, well, that's the title it had over here. In England, it was just Burke and Hare or something like that. Anyways, he also did The Curse of the Raidens, which is based around the Spring Hill Jack myth, who was a character that bounced between being a Jack the Ripper type and being sort of a hero or anti-hero, whichever. Now, Slaughter had a very distinctive screen persona. His characters were always greedy, very ruthless, sometimes bloodthirsty, cowardly, and let us just say rather lascivious. He was a middle-aged man at the time, and he was always lusting after young maidens and trying to force them into marriage. Now, a lot of these films would open not in the period setting, such as in The Crimes of Stephen Hawke, in which it opened in a radio station. They had a couple of acts perform, a singing group, and a comedian, and then Slaughter was brought up to the mic to tell everyone about his new Blood and Thunder film that he was making, and it would then cut to the actual film. In this one, We open in modern 1930s Britain, and a man goes in to get a shave and haircut, and he notices an interesting picture on the wall.
I suppose you want to sell that too.
That is one thing I will never sell.
Not to me, you won't.
This is no joking matter, son. That man was the greatest exponent of the razor the world has ever known.
And we are off into the story of Sweeney Todd. Opens in like the 1880s, and Sweeney is doing his usual thing of hanging out at the docks, trying to pick up some just returned sailors so he can polish them off for their girlfriends. Because, back then sailors didn't shave. Water was a premium on a ship. You didn't waste it shaving. So their hair was long and their beards were coming in. So, yeah, makes sense they would visit a barber. Here we're also introduced to the romantic couple of this story.
Oh, it's wonderful seeing you again. I was afraid that last night's goodbye was...
Oh, I couldn't let you go without another word.
That is Joanna and Marcus. He is a sailor on one of her father's ships, which is why there is not real paradise in their romance.
What's the meaning of this? What are you doing here?
I asked Joanna here to say goodbye.
Father, I came here because I...
Quiet, girl. Get aboard your ship, sir. You know my answer to you.
But I love Joanna.
How dare you argue with me? Get aboard, I say.
Okay. Apparently, a shipbuilder does not want his daughter to marry a ship's mate. Maybe if he was captain, there'd be a different feeling. But, class issues. Turns out, Sweeney was the one who told Joanna's father, Mr. Oakley, about their rendezvous. He knows everything that goes on around those docks. Anyway, he agrees to meet with Mr. Oakley to discuss some business on the new ship Oakley wants to build. And then we cut to his barber shop, where he is getting the 8th apprentice boy he's had in the last couple of weeks. Tobias.
The first duty of a barber's boy is to keep a still tongue in his head.
Yes.
I knew a nice little barber's boy once who had his tongue cut out for letting it wag too much.
Well, I don't think they're going to get along too well. But to show he's not that horrible a guy, he sends Tobias over with a penny to buy one of the meat pies at his neighbor's bakery, Mrs. Lavitt. And here we learn they're kind of got a business going on together.
Why the interest?
I may be joining him in partnership.
Hoity-toity, going up in the world.
Well, it's better than going down.
Many that go up come down quickly enough from the gallows.
Why is she so upset with him? Well, it seems they've been making a lot of money in their endeavors. We'll get to those later. And she hasn't seen a penny of it. Now he's investing in ships. She just wants her cut. Well, that night he has dinner, kind of letting Joanna know he's interested. She's not. And then agrees to finance Oakley's endeavor. He has a lot of money, and he's willing to invest it in this new ship Oakley's wanting to build. Of course, he is wanting maybe some encouragement from Oakley's part on behalf of betrothing to Joanna. Well, next day at the dock, we get a new ship arrival, and a very rich man coming down from the West Indies.
At your service, sir. After a month at sea, what could be more pleasant? and a haircut, shave, shampoo, and a general polisher.
Begad, I believe you're right. Is your shop nearby?
But round the corner, sir.
Begad, Mr. Sweeney Todd, you shall polish me off as you put it.
Mistake. After Tobias lathers him up, Sweeney gives him a penny to get a meat pie and to let the guy know, he can take a walk for a while. See if you can make the pie last all the way down to Chelsea and back. Just, little game. At which point he drops his customer through his revolving chair trap door into the basement and prepares to polish him off. And we get a cutaway. Like I said, these are pretty bloodless films. They never show any of those kind of things they would show in an American film. Anyway, once that's taken care of, he searches the satchel the guy was carrying. When Mrs. Lavett arrives, he tells her, there's your next body for you to get rid of. And he gives her the satchel and says, here, you go through it, and we can divvy it up between us when I get back. Got an appointment. And can you guess what happens when she goes through the satchel? Yep. Anyway, the appointment was with, of course, Joanna. They went for a ride, and he gives her the necklace, which she really does not want. But he's insistent. And so that we can get this out to a feature film and get some more into the way of plot, we cut to Marcus on his ship, which is passing around the Great Horn, aka Africa, when they receive word from an assistant at the local trading spot where they're near. The natives are going to attack, and he needs help. So the captain gets members of the crew together, and they go to the rescue. Doesn't look good for the trading postmaster. Hope Marcus and the rest are nearby by this point. That was a close one. Well, they do a pretty good job of routing the natives, as it were, but there are a couple of tragedies that happen. Both the captain and the trading postmaster are done for. Well, Marcus takes the trading postmaster into his hut, where, knowing that he's dying, the trading postmaster has something for Marcus.
Aye. Open it.
Pearls?
Aye.
Apparently, he had worked and saved up those pearls most of his life, but now that he's not going to be able to retire to enjoy them, he gives them to Marcus in exchange for being buried 3 points north by northwest. Or is it northeast? Well, anyway. He wants a specific nautical positioning burial. Well, Marcus, now the acting captain, since the captain got taken out by one of the natives, he has both buried there. And they continue on with their voyage. We now cut to some time later, and Sweeney's getting a little impatient with Mr. Oakley.
You pay me the money you owe me.
But I can't, Todd. You know I can't.
Then the new ship becomes my sole property.
But you can't. You wouldn't.
I can. Have you read our little agreement? But I wouldn't if you were my father-in-law.
Basically, if Joanna does not agree to marry Sweeney, he'll demand restitution for the debt, and if Oakley cannot pay that back, he'll take the ship, and Oakley will go to debtor's prison. A thing they had back then when you couldn't pay debts. A lot of poor people ended up there. Oh, and Oscar Wilde, who was a bit of a deviant. Anyway, to his credit, he doesn't force Joanna to marry Sweeney. Says there's nothing we can do when his daughter finds out the problem of the money, not the engagement, whatever. Then Sweeney, knowing that Marcus is his chief impediment to having Joanna, when the ship comes into port, he talks Marcus into coming to his barber shop to get himself fixed up for Joanna. And Marcus agrees and pulls a really big boner.
Successful voyage, Captain?
More than successful. My future is made.
You're a lucky man. Successful trading, eh?
Know anything about pearls?
A little.
Well, have a look at these. They were given me by a dying man.
I wish it were my fortune to meet such a man.
You may do. You never know your fate.
Man, he is just...
And stupid.
You're quite right.
Not everybody needs to be getting in on the act here. Anyway. Tobias is once again sent out for meat pie. And, well, we know what happens with Marcus.
Lie back. I'll soon polish you off.
Unfortunately for Marcus, he left the pearls on the barber stand. So Sweeney gets those. But when he gets downstairs, he finds that there's no body. Where'd it go? Mrs. Lovett hid it. She's a little ticked at Sweeney. Anyway, Sweeney does then a search. Goes down through this long tunnel. So we get some creepy atmosphere. Secret passages and all kinds of things. Special escape doors. Man, he's got everything under there. Well, Marcus finally comes to and is able to slip away down that very passageway. And he finally goes to see Joanna that night and tells her what happened and that he's got a plan to take care of Sweeney and get his pearls back. Meanwhile, Sweeney is dealing with his fence, who very stupidly, tells him everything he suspects, and then decides that from now on, Sweeney will be taking all his ill-gotten gains and giving them to him, working for nothing. Otherwise, he'll turn Sweeney in. And then he turns his back on him.
And what will you tell him?
I will tell him what happened to the captain of the Golden Hope after he left the key. And then...
Yeah, go ahead.
And stupid.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I love that laugh that Slaughter uses. It's kind of a little unstable and evil at the same time. Anyways, he drags the body down to their connecting basement, where Mrs. Lavett will take care of it like she has the rest. And fortunately, before he can do anything else, he gets a customer, an interestingly rich old man. So we know what he's going to do, right?
Let me down, quick! I'm coming, sir. Give it, come on, sir. I've got you, sir.
Why, it was Marcus in disguise this whole time. And he had a shipmate, Peavy, coming in through the back entrance to help him out. Well, now that they know how this is all done, Peavy's sent to get the rest of the men while Marcus goes back to Peavy's quarters and gets out of his disguise. Oh, now he had told, Marcus had told Toby to take a message to Joanna when he gets sent off with his meat pie. So he does. Now, Sweeney, finding 2 victims missing now, besides Mrs. Lavett has been behind all this, and well, it's time to polish her off now too.
I don't care where you go and who you marry, but you won't take my money with you.
Where you're going, you need no money.
Yep. Goodbye, Mrs. Lovett. Well, Tobias gets the message to Joanna, and she comes up with the brilliant idea that she'll take his clothes, put some ash on her face, and then head down to that shop in disguise. Well, it doesn't quite work.
Give me that. Give me that. I tell you.
Let me go. Let me go.
I'm going to see what you've got in the bag.
Well, packing up all his loot and setting fire to the shop, he goes outside and waits around the corner to make sure everything is going to go the way he thought. When, wouldn't you know it, Marcus shows up. Well, that won't do his schemes at all. Better take care of that. Doesn't look good, but here's the thing. Sweeney maybe a fiend and pretty handy with a razor, he's also older and not as in shape as a sailor would be. Well, they manage to get outside, and Sweeney is unconscious on his barber chair, and as the fire rages, well, just desserts, I guess you could call it. Grisly demise. Oh, as for the pearls and the money and all that, well, I think they're going to go to a well-deserving party. Well, that was a pretty nice ending there. Oh, movie's not over yet. We then cut back to the 1930s barber shop, where the customer has a normal reaction to all this he's just heard.
You have a most beautiful throat for the razor. Beautiful.
I might have done the same. I know what you're saying. We've been through this, and they don't actually come out and say what they're doing with the bodies. But anyone who knows the legend knows Mrs. Lavett made meat pies with the unfortunate victims. And the closest we get to that is in this really amusing scene when they're all gathered and the crew together to lay siege on Sweeney Todd's shop.
Of all the murders that have been committed in that shop,
Sure gives me the creeps when I think of it.
people chucked to their death in the cellars below.
I wonder if he buries them, what he does with them.
He wouldn't have room to bury them all there.
Well, what does he do with them?
How do I know?
I like that implication. He had stolen a meat pie from some of the pies that were down in the basement. And he's there eating it. Yeah, that's about as close as the implication we get. Him eating the meat pie while they discuss where the bodies could have gone. A bit of dark humor for this film. Modern audiences might not enjoy this too much. It is a rather slow paced and takes up much more time in the romance department and the when really all you want to see is Tod Slaughter just eating up the scenery as only he could do. And to be honest, when he's not on screen, the film kind of drags. The battle in the jungle is okay, over rather quick, and really the romance is meh. There is a amusing counterpoint with Joanna's maid of honor, I don't know, her servant, and Peavy, who is ship's mate, and they have more of a comical back and forth with their romance, where she really wants to marry him and he really doesn't want to get married. But yeah, and Slaughter gets some great lines, and he really knows how to play them.
I could hang you, Sweeney, with one word, like that.
And I could hang you, my precious, without that. If we must hang together, better alive than dead.
Why all this? And where's my share of what you took from him?
Don't worry. You'll get it.
And that, gang, is why he was the British Karloff. Even though Karloff himself was British. But you get the idea. Like I said before, when Todd's on the screen, it's a lot of fun. Other than that, it's kind of just an average melodrama with romantic subplots that you already know the outcome for that. But yeah, these were actually quite popular. And whenever between his last film, 1940, and some of his other work in the later 40s era, Todd would take these old plays, go out to provinces again, and tour with them, and people loved them. Yeah, they were way out of date, but he is so enjoyable in the role. He just plays it over the top just enough. And always the climax is he goes, usually, not in this one, but usually, like if you've ever seen Stephen Hawke or Facing the Window especially, he goes berserk, ranting and raving. But this is probably one of his best films overall, and one of his best performances. And it kind of made me a fan of his. I had heard about him and never seen any of them. And then when I saw this, I was like, oh, this guy's right up there with Karloff, Lugosi, Zuko, Chaney Jr., Peter Lorre, all those guys. Oh, Lionel Atwill. Yeah. Really, the man is amazing on screen. And he continued doing this way into old age. Because he was, you saw here, he was his late 30s, early 40s at this point, and he just continued on. So, please hit like, share, and subscribe as we end this video. And as always, stay after the credits for my favorite scene.